Welcome to BrainPaint, the intersection of technology and humanity. BrainPaint combines evidence-based neurofeedback with a friendly end-user experience. It starts with great design. BrainPaint's intuitive automated features give you the flexibility to custom tailor each individual experience while maintaining high standards of quality control. BrainPaint's integrated system provides flexibility and ease of use. BrainPaint offers suggested protocols or advanced options where more experienced providers can create their own protocol. Diagrams show you where to place the sensors for each protocol. The assessment tool has pop-ups outlining essential elements posed in each question for the client. BrainPaint's state-of-the-art facility crunches non-identifying information from thousands of neurofeedback sessions administered worldwide and correlates this data with the latest university research. This evolving automation allows BrainPaint providers to administer the most current protocols. Hands-on training includes webinars, private consultations, and weekly live conference calls with Bill Scott, the creator of BrainPaint and a pioneer in the field of EEG biofeedback. BrainPaint is an integrated system with unlimited options. Automation facilitates consistent results. Service provides an individualized end-to-end experience. The session environment should be a space free of distractions. It should have a comfortable chair that can sit upright at 90 degrees and also recline to at least 45 degrees for alpha theta sessions. Materials needed for the session should be kept at hand. This video will show you how to set up and use your BrainPaint system. Let's begin. First, remove and set aside the accessory box. Remove all items from the box and we'll begin to set up your system. Open the accessory box and check to make sure you have all these items: laptop power supply, amplifier USB cable, brainwave amplifier, EEG sensor cable, headband, individual sensor cables, and EEG conductive paste. Remove the computer AC power supply. The round pin connects to the back corner of your laptop. Place the computer on a table at a comfortable distance, not in your lap, where it may cause interference with the EEG signal. Don't put the computer on a soft surface like a couch or blanket, it'll become too hot. Also, be sure not to block the fan in the back of the computer. Overheating can destroy the computer. Now that the computer is safely located, let's hook up the amplifier. The amplifier connects to the computer with this USB cable. The square end of the cable connects to the box. Make sure the trident symbol is up and connect the other end to the USB port on the computer. Now we'll connect the gray wire to the amplifier box. Be sure the triangle is up when making this connection. There are 4 sensor wires. We'll only use 3 right now. 2 wires are blue. Use the blue wire that has this clip and put the other aside. The green wire goes in the space marked A1, the blue wire in the space marked R1, and the black wire in the space marked G. The other 2 spaces are not used. Now you're ready to start up the computer. It takes about 30 seconds for the computer to fully boot up. When you see the desktop screen, double left-click on the Shortcut to BrainPaint icon. Click on the New Evaluation button. Click the button only once per client. Later, you'll learn how and when you can reevaluate a client. The New Evaluation button will bring up a window where you can enter the client information. Left-click on M or F and hit Tab to move to the next box. If you enter a billing email, you can use it later to send an invoice. Although BrainPaint isn't aware of any security breaches, there's no such thing as a perfectly secure computer. One way to maintain client security would be to not put any identifying information into the machine. If client security is critical, you can enter a first name, last initial with the date number after it, such as John S. 120319, with the correct age and gender. Bill Scott will be able to find your client's non-identifying information for consultation purposes on the weekly conference calls. Also be aware that even though the client's identity is secure, it's possible Bill Scott could tell who your practitioners are by their initials, age, and gender. So be aware of that when choosing your growth areas with your own correct initials. When you finish the contact info, move to the Training Desires area. Here you should enter the things the client would like to achieve in the feedback sessions. The client can choose up to 4 separate areas that they would like to work on. To track the progress, put a brief description of each growth area the client wants to work on. Growth areas should be measurable in order for you and your clients to recognize clear progress in 5 to 8 rather than 12 to 15 sessions. Some examples of these are things you could count on a weekly basis. Currently has panic about 2 to 3 times per week. Using durations is another measure that most people will be able to track, as in the example, I wake with negative emotions for about the first hour and a half most days. This results in my being late for work about once per week. For situational performance enhancements, one might be, I feel extreme anxiety every time I publicly speak. This results in a flushed face, pounding heart, and shortness of breath. When you have finished the growth areas, at the bottom put the name of the doctor who referred the client. Click the Next button. This will bring up the evaluation checklist. This form gives the system the information it needs to choose the protocols. As you mouse over each item in the checklist, a pop-up will show you questions to ask the client. The client should not be allowed to see the questions or enter the answers in the computer themselves. Go through the items with the client. Use your own observations over a client's self-perception. The parent must answer the vast majority of the questions for an adolescent or child. For items that do not specify time frame, we only want to check items that reflect the pattern that has significantly detracted from the quality of one's life for about the last 3 to 6 months. We never want to check items that won't have a significant impact on the client's life. If the client says, no, my life wouldn't be a lot better if I had more energy, but I would like more, we would not check that item. Also be aware of very perfectionist clients who may answer yes to items where, in their mind, they're thinking back to 1976 while attending a chemistry lecture, they missed something the professor said. Let's be really clear about this with our clients before starting. And even then, if you find someone is endorsing an excessive amount of items, check in with them on recent specific examples. Then you be the judge if their answers reflect a significant pattern impeding the quality of their life. Sometimes having a laptop positioned where they can't see your answers can be a benefit with some clients. You need to ask all the sub-questions that pop up when you mouse over the questions. Even if someone says no to the majority of the sub-questions but answers yes to any of them, check the box. All the items are completely literal. There are no extenuating circumstances. A yes but is a yes. We never read the question headings, just all the pop-up questions. There's only one question that is an exception to this rule. That's the question in the upper rightmost corner of the screen which says, more happens for you than to you. If an oppositional adolescent or someone with extreme depression or anxiety says it seems like more bad happens to them in the current circumstances, but their logic tells them that's not always the case, we would check the box. The only time we would not check the box is if someone appears completely convinced that more bad things have happened in their life than good. When selecting the item, growth areas are primarily related to trauma or drama, or growth areas seem more related to physical causes, reflect back on the 4 measurable growth areas you created with your client. If the primary reason they're coming to you seems to have started after a scary event, seems to be limited to specific reactions to life situations, or they are dealing with a lot of defensiveness and insecurities, the issues are primarily trauma or drama is usually the best choice. Items that would be in the growth areas are more physiological in nature category would be issues that significantly worsen during puberty, physical head injuries, seizures, attention or other cognitive issues, bipolar issues, generalized anxiety, or arousal levels that increase and decrease without reason. About 50% of people would choose to check the item that says, primarily wants to overcome fears or reactions, even though their growth areas are attention related, sleep, mood, anger, impulsivity, or depression. When they say yes to that item, reflect back on the 4 priority growth areas and question the endorsement before checking it. After a client has made significant progress in their growth areas and has been better since starting feedback, but the same since last session for about 5 sessions, it's usually a good idea to then click the Reevaluation button and ask the questions again. Here it is important to frame the questions just to the last 2 weeks and ask the client to bring up specific examples of items they're checking. The reason for this is that when people change lifelong patterns very quickly, they will have a tendency to say, "Yes, Joan calls me sleepy because I fall asleep during movies, meetings, and lectures." When they're asked to find an example, they quite frequently will then realize they have not been doing that anymore, and will have much better information for the reevaluation. If the client is not making significant progress after 5 to 8 sessions, or negative side effects outweigh the progress, go to the BrainPrint chapter of the Additional Information section at the end of the video for further instructions. When you've finished the evaluation, click the Get Protocol button to save the results. This will bring up a window where you can open the client file. Double-click on the file to begin the session. This will bring up the Session Noter page. Here you'll see the protocols created during the evaluation. You'll also see the goals that were created. Click on the Save Notes and Start Feedback button to begin the session. The sensor placement window will show you where the sensors should go, but first let's prepare the sensors. The accessory kit comes with sponges. 2 sponges are joined in the middle. Push the clip through the middle of the sponge so it is just visible through the other side. Don't push it all the way through. Don't attach the clip to the outside of the sponge. You don't need to use the conductive paste with the sponges. The flat scalp sensor is pushed through in the same way. Dip the sponge in a cup of water with a teaspoon of salt in it, and squeeze and release the sponge in the water. Don't release the sponge above the water, or it will suck in air and won't work well. The sponge should be a little drippy. If you run out of sponges, you can use a piece of paper towel wrapped around the sensor, or attach the sensor directly with conductive paste. For instructions on these methods, see the Additional Information section at the end of the video. Remove the headband from your accessory box and place it on your head just above the ear. Wipe the earlobe with a little alcohol for better contact. Now let's return to the sensor placement screen. There are several configurations. In this configuration, the black ground wire clips to your left earlobe. A mirror can be helpful in placing the clip. Now we'll place the sensor with the green wire. This location, known as TC3, is located 4 fingers above the ear. Gently pressing on the sensor will help it connect through the hair. In this configuration, the blue wire will be placed on the opposite side. The TC4 location is also 4 fingers above the ear. When all the sensors are properly positioned, the top 2 lights on the amplifier will become green. This can take up to 15 seconds. The bottom lights will remain red. Yellow lights are okay, but if you have one red light and one green light, reposition the sensor that has the red light. Clip the end of the gray cable to your shirt to prevent pulling on the cables, which can interfere with feedback. Earrings can also interfere with the signal. You should remove them. Now our sensors are in place, and we're ready to begin the feedback. Click on the Start Protocol button to begin. The computer will now perform a number of tasks on its own to get your session ready. Don't interfere with the computer while it's doing this. These are called macros. This takes up to a full minute to prepare for your session. When you see this screen, the computer is ready. Click OK to begin your session. Hold still for the first 30 or 40 seconds while the computer completes the first part of a calibration program. The What Is, What Isn't bar shows how much the brainwaves are aligning with the program. The ideal state is more green than red. Several things can cause the red to increase: spacing out, movement, and muscle tension, especially the jaw or the tongue. Try and relax the muscles. If you're doing well, the program will increase the difficulty to challenge your brain. If you need to adjust the sound levels, click on the volume checkbox and a menu will pop up. Turning on the feedback coach will tell you if you're talking or moving around too much, keeping the system from giving you clean feedback. If you see this message, please correct EEG signal. You're probably moving around too much or the sensor is bumping up against something. It could be an earring. If you have an earring, remove it. If not, check the sensor and try and settle into a comfortable position. After a couple of minutes, the second calibration period is complete. You'll be given a 20-second rest, and then feedback will continue. The images on the screen are a representation of your brainwave activity. Beta and SMR sessions should be done with eyes open. If you become sleepy, try standing up. If you still have trouble, try cutting your protocol session times in half. Longest hold displays the number of seconds that the brainwaves have been aligned with the program. Periodic 20-second breaks display your points per second score. Your score should be 4.5 or higher. These fractal images are also a feedback delivery system in which your brain produces up to 40 images per second. When your feedback session is over, after a 20-second break, you'll be returned to the protocol window to begin the next part of your protocol. The sensor placement screen will show you if you need to move the sensors for the next part of your protocol. Try to complete all of your protocols during your session. If you're short on time, use the Change Time checkbox to cut each of your protocol times in half. You should have at least 2 sessions per week for it to be effective. More is better. You can even do double sessions in the same day. Alpha Theta sessions use a different sensor layout. These sessions are unique and may vary greatly. They move you away from survival mode and towards a state more interactive with the world. If you're running Alpha Theta on yourself, click the Play Visualizations checkbox. Before beginning feedback, check the top lights on your box. They should be green, yellow's okay, the bottom lights don't matter. Alpha Theta sessions should be done with the eyes closed in a reclining position. During Alpha Theta sessions, you may have dreamlike experiences that you may remember or not. They may seem important or they may not. This does not affect the effectiveness of the session. During your session, you may enter a state called crossover. In this state, theta activity is higher than alpha. This is a state between sleeping and waking. You'll be as calm as possible without actually sleeping. This state is like a guided meditation, a meditation with handrails. In this state, you can experience things that might be upsetting without experiencing the intense emotion usually attached to it. After your last protocol, you'll come to the final note page. Here you can make notes about your session. Click the View Pictures button to see images from your session. Wait for the macros until you see this screen. Here you can scroll down and look at pictures. To save a picture, choose a size, and then click on the Save One button. Be sure to have a pen drive attached to save your pictures to. Click on the Zoom Center button to adjust the size or the positioning of your image. Large images may take overnight to render. When you're finished, click the Exit button. Now click Save. You've completed your BrainPaint session. To begin your second session, click on the BrainPaint icon. Click on Start Session and open your file. This will bring you to the Session Noter page. Here you'll see your notes from your last session. You'll also see a list of your protocols. On the right, you can add notes before beginning your session. At the bottom of the page, you'll find an area where you can enter how you've been doing. Here you should choose a category for each area that best describes how you've been doing just since the last session. These answers are important. The program will use them to suggest changes to your protocol. The Result Narratives area is a place where you can make notes for your own use. These notes are optional. Farther right is an area where you will rate how you've done since all your treatment began. Since this is your second session, the answers will be the same, but later they may be different. Practitioners can export this information using the Export Notes button. This button will go through every session and copy out the notes from all sessions, putting them in a WordPad document, which can be saved to a USB drive. Software suggestions are also included and can be edited. When you have filled out all these areas, click on Save Notes and Start Feedback. This brings up the Other Responses page. Here you'll choose the option that describes each category just since your last session. It's important to answer these questions each session so the program can make its best suggestions for protocol changes. In the Other Reactions box, choose any items that apply. If some external factor affected all your answers, like a jackhammer going all night, then choose These reactions aren't likely biofeedback related. Now click Save and Run to start your protocol. You're ready to begin your session. If you run out of sponges, you can use a piece of paper towel wrapped around the sensor, or attach the sensor directly to the scalp with conductive paste. If you're using a paper towel, first place a small piece of conductive paste the size of a pea on both sides of the sensor. Now take half a piece of paper towel folded lengthwise, fold it over the sensor and wrap it around. Don't spin the wire to wrap it, this may tangle and break the wire. Instead, hold the sensor in place and wrap the paper towel completely around it. Dip the paper towel in a cup of water with a teaspoon of salt in it. Place the sensors in the headband at the designated spots. The sensors can also be placed directly on the scalp. To do this, use the flat scalp sensors. First, take a piece of conductive paste the size of a pea on your finger. Then, clean the area of the scalp with alcohol. Rub the scalp hard to remove dead skin. Repeat this 4 or 5 times, resting in between. The scalp should be a little bit pink when you're done. When the scalp is clean, put a piece of the conductive paste on the spot to mark it. Now put the conductive paste on the sensor and place the sensor on the scalp. Be sure to get the sensor on the scalp and not on the hair so that it makes good contact. When placing the sensor directly on the scalp, the headband is not necessary. Now return to the sensor placement chapter to begin the feedback. If you think one of your sensor wires is broken or intermittent, you can easily test them. Turn on the computer and plug in the amplifier box. You don't need to run the program. Remove any sensors from the channel 2 side of the gray connector. Now plug the green wire into the A1 hole, the blue wire in R1, and the black wire into the G hole. Clip all 3 of the sensors together and hold them firmly in your fingers. Look to see if the 2 top lights on the box are both green. Now hold the wires together firmly so the clips do not separate, and move and shake the wires and the gray connector to test for an intermittent connection. Look to see if the lights stay continuously green on top. Both lights must be green. If the lights stay green on top, on both sides, the whole time, the green and blue wires are good. If the light on one side of the top is red, either the green or blue wire is bad. To see which one is bad, trade the black and blue wires. Put the black wire in R1 and the blue wire in G. If the lights go green, the blue wire is bad. If one of the lights stays red, put the black wire in A1, the blue wire in R1, and the green wire in G. If the lights go green, the green wire is bad. If both green and blue wires are good, you may still have a bad ground wire. A bad ground wire can cause a strange signal in the EEG, continuously or intermittently. To test the ground wire, put the green wire in the A1 hole, the black wire in the R1 hole, and the blue wire in the G hole. Again, shake and move the wires to check for intermittent connection. If both top lights stay green, the black wire is good. If any of the top lights are red, the black ground wire is bad. If you have a new set of cables and clipping all 3 together, one of the top lights is still red, then your gray cable is bad. If you have a bad ground wire, you can temporarily use a scalp sensor to replace it. Clean the ear with alcohol and put a small amount of paste the size of half a pea on the sensor and place it on the ear. You can also place it on the mastoid bone behind the ear, cleaning first with alcohol. If you have a bent sensor clip that no longer holds, you can easily fix it. A sensor clip that no longer holds can be fixed by sliding the clip past itself. Then bend the clip away from itself. Now slip the clip back around and it will be working again. You can order replacement sensors from the Supplies and Contact Info folder on the desktop. It's useful to have a spare set on hand. They cost about $50, including shipping. To send a client file to another clinician, first have the client sign a release of personal information. Then click the Start Session button. Double right-click on the name of the client you want to send. Click the checkbox at the bottom that says Send Client's File to Another Clinician. If you've ever sent a client file to another practitioner, the information is saved in the Supplies and Contact folder on your desktop. Call the other practitioner to get their 12-digit code number. This number is located where it says Registered To on the BrainPaint home screen. Enter the registration number the other provider gave you. It will be a 12-digit number. Click the Send button. The file will be sent to the other clinician. When the file transfer is completed, a message will appear on your screen. To receive a file, click the Start Session button. Then double right-click any name in the client list. The computer will give an audio confirmation that your file is being installed.
We installed the new client onto your machine from BrainPaint or another practitioner.
Now exit the client data window and click Start Session. You'll see that the new file has been installed. Double left-click on it to open it and begin a session. BrainPRINT is a special protocol to use when BrainPaint has been ineffective. BrainPRINT should never be used as the initial protocol. First, use whatever protocol BrainPaint initially suggests. Complete 5 to 8 sessions if there are 2 or more sessions per week. Complete 12 sessions if there is only 1 session per week. Then, if after these sessions there is no progress, or negative side effects outweigh the progress, then use BrainPRINT. Here's an example of what you would do if someone's initial unsuccessful sessions included 24 minutes of suggested alpha-theta training. First, do a reevaluation of the client. Start a BrainPaint session and open the client file. Click the Reevaluation button. This will bring up the evaluation checklist. A few key areas greatly affect the protocols. If the issues are primarily trauma or drama related is checked, check the opposite item. Issues are more physiological in nature. If primarily wants to overcome fears is checked, uncheck it. The more happens for you than to you item heavily weights the protocol. This item should be checked unless the client is completely convinced that more bad things than good things have happened to them. If the client is depressed or anxious and things seem bad, but they are not completely convinced that overall more bad than good has happened to them, you should still check this item. Review all other items, including items not checked. Look for things that were overlooked. Maybe the client didn't take the evaluation seriously the first time, or was unable to access how they were really feeling. Click the Get Protocol button. This will generate a new protocol in the form of a new client file available in just a few seconds. Open the client file, the one most recently created, and run the protocol. If the new protocol continues to assign 24 minutes of alpha theta training, return to the evaluation screen and carefully review the last 5 items in the lower right corner. These items are PTSD related. In this particular situation, 90% of the time the client does not have PTSD. If the client says an event negatively changed my life, it could just be a new object of obsessionality. Maybe a roommate came home from the ER and did not take off their shoes, and now the whole house is dirty. If they checked, I relive trauma, it could just be some new item they are obsessing about. If they checked, I have panic attacks, we want to make sure they meet the criteria listed in the pop-up. If they checked, I avoid things that remind me of trauma, and these are things like conversations, TV programs, or movies, then these are almost certainly obsessional traits. Also review all the other items in the evaluation screen with your client. The trauma item and fears item should be unchecked. Also re-examine the more happens for you than to you item. Then click the Get Protocol button. The system will generate a new protocol as the most recent client file. The new protocol should be an effective one with beta and SMR sessions. If the protocol still has alpha theta sessions, return to the evaluation screen and uncheck the last 5 items in the lower right corner. Even if the patient has PTSD, they probably also have obsessive qualities that were picked up as PTSD. The generated protocol should have SMR sessions, which would be most appropriate for the situation. Now click the Get Protocol button. Open the client file and run 3 BrainPaint sessions. Alternately, here is what you would do prior to using your BrainPrint protocol if the initial unproductive sessions were beta and/or SMR, with no alpha theta time suggested. If the client previously had beta and SMR protocols, on reevaluation, check the trauma item, the fears item, and review the PTSD items. They probably have some. Also review the growth areas. 80% of the time, if growth areas are not progressing on beta and SMR training, the overcome fears item should be checked. Click the Get Protocol button. Open the client file and run 3 BrainPaint sessions. If after these 3 sessions there is still no clear progress, use the BrainPrint protocol. BrainPrint is most commonly used with obsessionality where alpha theta did not help, or beta SMR did not help, or with under-arousal issues that continued, sleepy, inattentive, no motivation, and BrainPaint sessions did not help. Contact Bill Scott. He will do a software update that will install BrainPrint on your system. Once BrainPrint is installed, you will see the icon on your desktop. Double left-click on the BrainPrint icon. BrainPrint will resize your screen. Wait until you see the Start Game screen. BrainPrint needs an internet connection because the server processes live data using the Halbert-Hahn transform looking for brainwave patterns. If you don't have an active internet connection, the program will tell you. Click the Start Game button. Enter the number of sessions since you began the process. You should have 10 to 14 sessions. It is also essential to enter the initials, right or left-handedness, age, and gender. In the Select Site box, choose FP1, FP2. Don't check the auditory version, as this is still experimental at this time. Enter an email address for the BrainPrint protocol. Now click Start Game to begin the process. Read and agree to the Informed Consent screen. On the Attention Question screen, check any items that apply. The screen takes about 5 minutes. If the client is a child, the parent can read the questions, and the child can quickly answer yes or no. When you're finished, click the Done button. check any final question items that apply. Then click Get Results. The sensor placement windows will show you where to put the sensors. You will need 5 wires to complete this protocol. This means you will need to obtain an additional ear clip wire. The desktop folder, Supplies and Contacts, will show you how to order a new set of wires. It is good to have a spare set on hand. They cost about $50, including shipping. For the BrainPRINT protocol, the green scalp sensor goes in the A1 hole. The blue clip sensor goes in the R1 hole. The black clip sensor goes in the G hole. The blue clip sensor goes in the R2 hole. And the blue scalp sensor goes in the A2 hole. With this protocol, the black G1 wire and the blue R1 wire both clip to the left ear. Be sure the metal parts of these 2 clips do not touch. The green A1 wire goes 4 fingers above the ear and 8 fingers forward. The sensor will end up near the hairline above the eye. The blue R2 wire clips to the right ear. The blue A2 wire goes 4 fingers up from the right ear and 8 fingers forward. It should be as symmetrical as possible with the A1 sensor. Clip the gray wire to your clothing so that it doesn't pull on the sensor wires. Check that all 4 lights on the box are green or at least yellow. People with thyroid issues will find it impossible to get all the lights green. Now click the Start Game button. Don't move the mouse as the computer prepares for the game. Windows will come and go, but wait till you see this screen, which will explain the performance game. When you're ready, hit the Enter key. Click Yes if you see the word Paused above the EEG display. Press Enter when you are ready to begin. When you see L, click the left trackpad button. When you see R, click the right trackpad button. When you see P, do nothing. You can use a mouse with opposite thumbs. After a practice session, you'll begin the actual game. Try to complete the practice session and the full game. If the client can't complete the game, have them try to play the game for at least 2 minutes. Then hit the Escape key to exit the game. The system needs at least 2 minutes of data to be able to process the session. There will be people who cannot complete the game because it's too hard or stirs up too much emotion. If the client cannot play the game at all, then pause the game and have the client just sit and watch the paused letter for 2 minutes. Then hit Escape to exit the game. When the game is complete, the system will send the data for processing. First, the system will confirm your internet connection. Then, when you see this screen, click OK to begin the process. When the process is complete, you'll see this notification on your screen. When the upload is finished, email Bill Scott with BrainPRINT waiting in the subject heading. This will expedite the processing of your data. The protocol will be available within 48 weekday hours of sending the email request. To receive the protocol, open BrainPaint and click the Start Session button. Then double right-click any name in the client list. The screen confirms your incoming protocol. Click OK and then double left-click on the file you want to attach the BrainPRINT protocol to. Click Yes to confirm you have chosen the right client file. You will receive confirmation that the file has been installed.
We installed 2 new clients onto your machine from BrainPaint or another practitioner.
Now exit the client data window and click Start Session. You will see that the new file has been installed. Double left-click on the file to open it and begin a session. To play the performance game, first click on the Start Session button in the BrainPaint home screen. Double-click on the client file to open the session. This will bring up the Session Noter page. Here you'll see the protocols created during your evaluation. You'll also see the goals you created. Before starting your first session, we're going to play the performance game. After about 10 sessions, we'll play the game again to see how you've progressed. Now click on the Performance Game button to begin the game. When you're ready to play the game, click OK. When you see L, click on the left trackpad button. When you see R, click on the right trackpad button. When you see P, do nothing. Try to use different hands. You can also use a mouse with opposite thumbs. After a practice session, click OK to begin the game. The performance game is an attempt to objectively measure performance improvements on focus, speed, impulsivity, and accuracy that often occur with EEG biofeedback. If you make a mistake, the box moves back 10 spaces. If you make a mistake at the very beginning, the game will ask you to start over. When the game is over, you'll see your score. Your main score is the time it took to complete the game. It is a measure of how you balanced speed versus accuracy. Click OK to return to the Session Noter page. Here you'll see the results of the game. Now click on Save Notes and Start Feedback. This brings up the protocol order page. Click on one of the checkboxes to begin your session.